Happy Spooktober and happy Halloween. And as a special seasonal event, I will be checking out creepypastas from across the internet. If you don't know what a creepypasta is, they are horror stories that are basically on the internet. They get passed around forums and other sites to disturb and frighten their readers. And the phrase creepypasta derives from the word copypasta, which is basically an internet phrase for if you were to have a block of text that just gets copied and pasted over and over again from website to website, kind of like a meme in a way. So sit back, relax, subscribe. It's time for a creepy story. I always loved comics. Especially superhero comics. Like a lot of people, I grew up reading Superman, Batman, Captain America, all that good stuff. But my absolute favorite was Spider-Man, so it's no surprise that I grew up to work at a comic book store. But that's not important. You want to know about the story. Well, one day after work, I stopped off at this little run-down toy store. The guy that ran the place looked about nonchalantly, almost as if I wasn't there. I looked around, there are a few nice collectibles on the shelves, but what really caught my eye was a strange action figure. It was a Spider-Man action figure, but unlike any I'd ever seen. It was all red, its webbing patterns were disorganized, the spider was crooked and looked almost like a real spider. Also, the lenses appeared to be broken. There were small painted-in cracks in the mask lenses. That unnerved me a bit, but I still thought it was cool. I bought it for a mere 50 cents, and a comic book was given to me for free. "Comes with the figure," the store owner said. The only thing I ever heard him say while I was there. I left and brought it home to my apartment. I set the toy on a shelf with the rest of my personal collection. Yes, I'm a nerd, get over it, but you're here for the story, right? Anyways, I took the comic out of the bag and actually looked at it, and it was creepy to say the least. It looked like an homage to Amazing Fantasy issue 15, Spider-Man's first appearance. The title read The Forgotten Spider-Man issue 0. It looked like the action figure, but the person he was holding looked limp, his head at an unnatural angle, his eyes closed. It didn't say who wrote or illustrated it, no Comics Code Authority symbol, not even a Marvel logo. It started with Peter Parker, as per expectation, attending the radioactivity demonstration. I began to feel nostalgic as my eyes scanned the panels. The spider was caught in the radioactive energy, it landed on Peter's hand, and it bit him. That was normal. But then I noticed something weird, more like frightening. Instead of just a bite, blood poured from the wound. It covered Peter's arm. He was screaming, begging for help as others looked in on the horror. His body became covered in red, reminiscent of the Carnage symbiote, and strange black cords ripped from his wrists and ankles, wrapping into the disorganized web pattern that I had seen on the toy. The spider that bit Peter crawled onto his chest and became a part of his body. A scientist reached out to Peter, but Peter lashed out and attacked him, strangling the others with black webbing in a mindless rampage. Suddenly, I forgot that I was a 25-year-old man, and I, like a frightened child, whispered, "Spider-Man?" I continued reading. Spider-Man, if I could call him that, started brutally murdering people. The blood on the page was such a deep shade of red, I almost thought that it was inked in real red blood. I had to put it down. I was getting sick to my stomach. Then something caught my eye. I turned to see, sitting on top of my fridge, was the toy. It was crouched in the trademark Spider-Man pose. It was freaky. I'd put it on my shelf, standing straight up. The cracked lenses looked at me, and not just positioned in my direction, it was literally looking at me. I don't know how, but somehow I knew it wanted me to keep reading the comic. So I picked it up and opened it again. Spider-Man was still killing, but what I saw only made it worse. He was making his way to his home, ripping off Mary Jane's head and beating people with her spine along the way. I was getting horrified, and then, in a full splash panel, he had reached his house. He killed his Uncle Ben first, blind with rage, and then ripped his arm off, beating Aunt May to death with it. I was getting sick again. I could have sworn I heard laughing in the back of my mind. It was the end of the issue. I saw a preview for the next one, which showed Spider-Man holding what looked to be Dr. Otto Octavius by the throat. I was grateful that the issue was over, but mortified by its contents. I turned to look at the Spider-Man toy, and it was gone. I then felt the issue slip away. In a fraction of a second, the toy was gone, taking the comic with it. I sighed with relief until a voice spoke in my mind in a cruel, mocking tone. "Till next time, true believers." It's been a month since this happened. I had learned that an artist who had attempted to submit his work, a full horror-themed Spider-Man comic book to Marvel Comics, had died of overexhaustion, never eating or drinking, only working till his body just gave out. I learned this after searching up the forgotten Spider-Man on the internet. An article about the artist being the only thing I could find. There was an image of the artist's desk included in the article showing the unfinished cover of the comic book that I had just read. I was still traumatized by the events of that day, but I couldn't help feeling bad for this artist, as all he wanted was someone to appreciate his work. Now I suppose I'm that person, because I got this in the mail today, sent in an envelope with no return address. It was The Forgotten Spider-Man, issue 1. So this creepypasta was written by Larry Lugosi. And to be honest, while an easy entertaining read, it is pretty standard fare for lost episode creepypastas. Person finds a peculiar piece of what they believe is lost media, reads it, ends up being bizarrely sensitive towards it, and just getting completely disturbed by illustrations of gore and violence. Why does it always feel like these stories are inhabited by, like, a Christian mother who's never ever heard of the horror genre before? And then there's things like it didn't have the Comics Code Authority symbol on it, and I don't know if, like, maybe if this was supposed to look like an old comic, that wouldn't be so bad, but today you don't tend to see the Comics Code Authority stamp on comic books anymore. And then there's just the whole thing of the comic starts off as per expectation with Peter getting bit by the spider. I mean, what is every single Spider-Man comic the origin? Are we expecting it every single time? But I mean, I guess we can let that kind of slide because, I mean, it is issue 0 after all. There are some kind of interesting ideas going at play though, like the idea that the suit is made of his blood that's pouring out of his hand, the spider crawls onto his chest and basically hugs it. I think that's actually kind of cool. And then we've got this alive action figure like something out of Toy Story, which I don't think was really necessary to the story. I would have really just liked to see this sort of interpretation of Spider-Man without the story that surrounds it. It's definitely an enjoyable read though, with some fun creative ideas in there. It's the overall creepypasta itself is just pretty unoriginal. And then, obviously, it just kind of divulges into, Spider-Man ripped off Mary Jane's head. He's now killing Uncle Ben and Aunt May. It's kind of like the whole thing of, I tuned into SpongeBob one day and SpongeBob killed Squidward and blood was everywhere. There are more interesting ways you can tell this story. But then again, this is just something written on the internet by a hobbyist. So for what it's worth, it was an entertaining read. And I wish the author all the best. I hope you enjoyed this though. Do you have any creepypastas you'd like me to read? Comment them below. Do give me the author's name as well, and if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below are links to my Patreon and my Discord. Happy Halloween, everybody! This video is brought to you by Zentai for all your cosplay needs. Link is in the description below and they are very cool and good. Cosplay your favorite characters or send in one of your own designs. Affordable prices and very high quality. Made to order and made to measure. But most of all, made to be heckin' awesome, if you couldn't already tell. Guys, can you believe where we are now and where we started? How long ago it was that Channel Pup, or Channel Goat even, came about? Because it really wasn't that long when you think about it. Can you believe the amount of support I've received from this community, from all of you subscribing to the channel and everything? It's unreal. It's a dream come true for me. But behind the YouTubers you watch usually comes a bit of a truth, is that they're often dirt poor. Now, I've had the good fortune of being able to grow this YouTube channel and hopefully turn it into a career, but I'm gonna need a little bit of help along the way to even the odds to make ends meet, so that I can use all of the possible time that I have to make videos for you guys as opposed to doing something mundane for barely enough money to make it worth its while. I've done all that. I've lived that life. The fact is, together we all built Channel Pup. We made it what it is today, and I want to keep the ball rolling on that. I don't ever want to stop doing this because this is the most gratifying job I've ever had, and I think the most pleasurable hobby anyone could ever have. I don't take any of the support that I receive from you guys for granted, but if in any way you're wondering if maybe you could do a little more for the channel even, then I want to direct you to the Patreon link in the description below. It would mean the world to me to have your support via Patreon. It can help me to make ends meet. It can help me to better my content. It can help me to have more time to really work on this stuff. But you know what? I'm not just going to take your support and run. No way, Jose. In the Patreon, you can access exclusive videos via the Pups Project Room playlist, where you can see different projects that I've been working on or have worked on that have either not made it to YouTube for general viewing or have been cancelled, or, well, you can get a little view of the process that goes behind the Channel Pup videos and productions. As well as that, you tend to get advanced previews of the bigger Channel Pup projects, our tentpole event projects. If you've seen Marvelous Tales of Spider-Man, you'll be aware that that was released on the Patreon first, and 20 days later approximately was released for general viewing on YouTube. That's not the only time I'm gonna do this, but you know what? If you can't do the Patreon or are just not interested in doing the Patreon, I fully understand. Like, it's still a big ask in my opinion. And what counts most is your support. So, as always, thank you so much, guys. I've been Channel Pup, and I will think of a better catchphrase next time. Now please leave me alone!